Well, I have been blessed to be married to the love of my life for the last 20 years, and I can't say that there haven't been a couple of rough patches along the way, but we just celebrated 20 years, and I consider that just a treasure, and I don't take any day for granted. But we're going to talk about healthy marriages with a couple who knows a little something about that, Randal and Tracy Dowdy. They are the authors of a new best-selling book called Beyond Impossible, and their story needs to be a made-for-TV movie. Tracy, let's start with you. You were married, divorced, and married again, and then about to get divorced a second time.
That's correct.
All right, tell us the story.
Well, Randall and I were married in 1997. We were married for 8 years. We divorced after 8 years, and we did not see or speak to each other for 5 years. And miraculously, we got back together in 2010. And we had been back together for 9 years. We were not married, formally married, but we were living together and acting like husband and wife. But we were dealing with a lot of chaos and stress and struggles, and I was this close to kicking Randall out. And we had something absolutely shocking and miraculous happen. We had a supernatural encounter with God in our home in Baja, California, Mexico. And it was incredible. And he showed up to Randall. And it was the most amazing time. For 10 days. God just poured himself into Randall, and I watched in amazement. And God transformed our lives and our marriage as a result of that encounter.
All right, Randall, from your perspective, what happened? Where you had gone astray?
I'd gone astray, Jeff. I cheated, or I broke the marriage covenant with Tracy, and besides that, it's just I had a head injury that from rock climbing that contributed to that. It was on a lot of medications, and I truly believe it was a reason, but it was not all the reason, and just a lot of stress factors for blending our family, and I don't know what else beyond that, but I just failed, and I had a lot of guilt over that failure, and even moving forward, I continued to fail because I'd lost my largest client and had to shut our doors, and I got lost, and I couldn't reinvent myself. I struggled to even find a job, and I couldn't start a new company, and so I just started spiraling again, and I started smoking marijuana again, and then it became our conflicts ensued for years, and it was more of the same, and it didn't get any better.
Okay, so Tracy, describe the God encounter that changed your life.
Well, as I mentioned, that we were really close to ending the relationship, because after Randall and I got back together, when we were apart, for example, he was living in the mountains of Colorado. He had hibernated like a mountain man in solitude. And when we got back together, I really felt like there was healing. But Randall had buried his pain so deep that he didn't even realize or recognize it. And over the 9 years that we had been back together, when he lost his business and I became the breadwinner of the family, I was just not sure I wanted to be in a committed relationship with a man who was not providing for me. Our relationship with God was lukewarm at the time, and I really had more of a selfish attitude. I just didn't quite know if I had a lot of mind battles going on in my head, like, he's not providing for you. You can do better. What's wrong with you? Were constant daily thoughts that were going through my mind. So we were just in this very chaotic and spiraling down relationship. And I was really at the point of kicking him out because he was smoking marijuana to cover and medicate his pain and shame, and feeling emasculated because I was providing for us. And we went to a mastermind retreat the week before God showed up, and I went to a coffee shop to plan my 2019 goals without Randall. And when I got there, I opened my journal, and instead of writing out my 2019 goals, the Lord reminded me, Randall is my child. See him through my eyes. Be patient. Have mercy and grace for him. And so I ended up writing him a heartfelt love letter. And I quoted, the love chapter, 1 Corinthians chapter 13. And I just was so excited to give him this letter. And I took it home and I handed it to him, and his romantic, heartfelt response was,
Thanks.
and then he tossed it in his desk drawer. And it was just,
Yeah. Well, the truth is, I couldn't accept the words that she wrote. The way that she felt about me was nowhere near the way I felt about myself. And I read the letter a few days later, and I had an entirely different outlook. And I guess it was just, I accepted the words, but still weren't healed. There was still a lot of work. God had to do a lot of work at that point, and it wasn't done at that yet.
You told me before we went on that you actually saw a vision. You saw God.
Yeah.
Yeah, so so a couple nights later, we went on a date, and we came home after the date, and instead of getting in bed and watching TV as usual, we sat by the fire for a couple of hours, and we while we were at our mastermind retreat, we had our business coach suggested that we create a fail strategy, meaning you create a goal and you are expecting it to fail, but maybe, just maybe, it may not fail. And if you reach for the stars, maybe you'll catch the moon. And so our thought was maybe that we would, start a podcast or write a book just about the fact that we had been married and divorced and we're back together. We weren't sure we had a story, but that was definitely soon to change, because the next day, share what happened, Randall.
Well, the next 4 nights suggested that we pray together, and it had been years since doing so. As Tracy indicated, we were both lukewarm for a lot of years. We grew up in Christian homes, but we didn't live like it. And in my prayer, I almost prayed for her children, and that God would bless them, watch over them. And then she put one hand on my head, the other on my heart, and prayed healing over me for the first time ever, very unexpectedly. And it was the most beautiful, most wonderful prayer, powerful, that I'd ever heard from her. Later that afternoon, I went to her balcony to meditate. Meditation turned to tears, and it was just God spoke to me when I was on the balcony. And 2 things happened. That one, God told me I had to go to Texas to see my dad. That's something I swore that I would never do. Number 2, I saw a vision. I've never seen a vision before. I didn't believe in visions. I didn't believe in the gifts of the Spirit. I certainly didn't believe God spoke to people like he'd spoken with me only moments before. And over the course of the next 10 days, God began speaking to me in ways more real than I can possibly describe. I felt his presence in ways more real than I can possibly describe. The Lord Jesus is beyond any words that we can describe. His love is boundless. Everything was alive and without bounds. Everything emitted completeness and perfection. It was truth, absolute truth, and his truth was probably the loudest thing of the whole encounter, because it was loud and in my face, and the authority that went with the truth was quiet. It was unassuming, but it was absolute. It was an absolute authority of the ages was in that room. But the love, I want to kind of get back to that as Jesus was pouring his love into me, the intensity was beyond anything I could possibly describe. And she was sitting back, she was watching in amazement as all this was happening. And all I could say was no words. No words. There are no words in the English language that could possibly describe the love of our Father. And he loves us without end. And he was showing who he is, really showing who he really is, and moreover showing who I am to him. And I was lost. I was beyond redemption. I think a lot of us think that felt like me, that we've gone too far, or that we're too broken for God to fix. I know that's how I felt. And God changed all that.
Well, you give me goosebumps because I can see your eyes misting up. We found a beautiful video on your website. Let's go ahead and roll that now. Wow, so inspiring. So I want to know some hints for people right now who are struggling in their marriage. I know the pandemic was rough on marriages. If it was already a toxic household, being locked down together was not going to be good for most marriages. If somebody's out there watching this and they're struggling in their marriage, what's some advice, Tracy?
I think the advice is go back to how God ordained marriage. You know, it's a covenant that He has created for a husband and a wife to not break, no matter what. And I think so often we live in a society that it's all about me and my agenda. And we often say, well, there's something better on the other side. The grass is greener on the other side. I've had too much. I can't take this anymore. And what I have learned over this journey of being married and divorced with Randall and being back with Randall and now God being in the center of our marriage is that when we are obedient to what the Lord wants in our relationship, even when it's tough, we stick to it and God will bless it. God will bless it. But I think often our culture has sucked us in, even as Christians, to seek things that He never meant for us to seek. And so our views and our perceptions get distorted about what we should be focusing on. And so if we can come together and not allow the enemy to deceive and kill, steal, and destroy our marriages,
Yes.
but to fight the battle, because we realized that we were in a battle. When God has something really special in store for the family and for these marriages, the enemy will attack. And I think it's important that we not allow that we realize that that's where it's coming from. And we focus on sticking in there, even through the tough times, because God truly will.
Sure.
He'll be there to carry you through it.
Randall, let's talk a little bit about just substance abuse and different things that people are escaping into. And it's hard to let God in if you're escaping into drugs or pornography or anything that, the vices that are out there.
They're absolutely out there, and I can speak to that very well because, it's one thing we were completely sold out to God. We weren't. And moreover, I wasn't being a leader, and I sought drugs. I sought strip clubs and things that definitely were not of God. And we feel like if we look back, that we know that if we would have focused on God and forgot about everything else and just looked to God for all of our answers, that our lives would have been so much easier than going through it, living the consequences of our decisions. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We've only got about a minute left. Give me something out of the book that we haven't talked about. I mean, is this book for everyone? Is it for a person struggling in their marriage? Is it for a newlywed? Who's the book for?
I think the book really focuses on how God can transform anybody's life. That's if you've been a victim of chaos or circumstances beyond your control, you feel like you're really broken and you don't think that there's any hope for you, this book is going to give you hope. It's going to show you that God can turn any broken relationship or broken heart and turn it around into something really, really beautiful. When God showed up, He told us that we needed to show up and tell the story, tell the whole story, and not leave anything out. So we share a lot about our own brokenness and some of the choices that we made that took us down so many destructive paths, and the Lord redeemed us. And He redeemed our marriage, and He redeemed our hearts for Him. And I think that if people are feeling like they need some hope, this is a great book for anybody who's looking for restoration and hope through our amazing Lord.
Wow.
Can I address that too?
Yes, please.
In Romans 8:28, for all things work for the good of those who love the Lord and are called according to His purpose. The Lord gave all my days meaning. Every one of them, the good, the bad, the terrible, the ones where only God knew how hurt you were. And He took all those days, and even though we didn't know it at the time, a lot of things happened and a lot of hurt from divorces and just throughout my life. But God made all that well. He wants that for everyone. And I think when we don't see God at times, we see the terrible things that might be happening to us, but God is there, and He was there with her when she was 12 years old, and she lost brother and father within 3 weeks of each other, and He was there all that time, and He was there for both of us throughout all of our years.
Wow. From brokenness to blessed. You guys
That's
are
right.
awesome. Thank you
That's
so
right.
much for coming on the show. To get a hold of the book or get a hold of Randal or Tracy, go to randalandtracy.com.
Yes.
And I can't thank you enough for sharing your spirit and just wisdom with the world. Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank you,
having
Jeff,
us,
for
Jeff.
having us
We're
very much.
happy to be here.
You bet. And that's it for now. We'll see you next time.
Bye.